and Jesus with Ugly Jody. Hi, Jody. How are you? And we're going to have another great topic today.
Yes, looking forward to chatting with you. Thanks for letting me come on again.
All right. Executive development is our thing. Since I've gotten to know you, Jody, what I have seen is the ability that you have to really put strategic partnerships together. And we're going to talk about that in a later podcast, build relationships and really see where people's strengths are. And I'm very impressed by that. So when you work one-on-one with executives, what is the most common blind spot you uncover?
Yeah, so it really depends on the executive's backgrounds. A lot of the folks, especially coming out of federal government service, what I'm finding is they really don't understand the value add they bring to companies. The folks coming out either from federal law enforcement or intelligence community or war, they have a skill set that is really uncommon among most corporate environments. They've seen things, they've done things that most people will never have access to. And so they bring that knowledge set, that experience to an organization. The other thing too is a lot of folks coming out of federal government, they struggle because when you're in the government, you have a purpose of mission, and typically it's to protect the American people. When you get out, that mission usually changes to making money. And they're not necessarily exclusive, but you do want to make sure you're finding a company that's going to work with you in that. And a lot of executives can sometimes forget that mission set. On the other side of it, there are folks in the corporate world who also have different experiences and backgrounds that they're bringing to the table. But one of the things that kind of jumps out is they lose that sense of purpose of mission. They get beholden to things like shareholders or corporate profits or bottom lines. And sometimes I find the enemy will work into their hearts and their minds and allow greed to seep in where it shouldn't be. And then you can run a great company and you can make money without having the expense of other folks. So I think that to me has been one of the big things. And obviously we've talked before about humble confidence and just executive leaders leading with that humble confidence, knowing that what they're doing, God's given them gifts, skills, and talents. They're using those gifts, skills, and talents in the betterment of the company, but they don't allow arrogance to seep in. That's one of the other things I've seen, both in government and in corporate space. I've seen some wonderful leaders who do lead with that humble confidence, and I've seen some pompous, arrogant people who allow themselves to take front and center.
So what blind spots do you see these executives talk about, like certain ones, like you say, okay, this is something I spot. That's what's really hurting them to lead their team.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is they get a bunker mentality. One of the things I've been learning as I've been going through my business development experiences, there's a lot of vipers in the business world, and they will eat their own if they have to. And that makes people cynical. It makes people not want to trust other people. And I think one of the things that I like to do is I bring together good men and women that I know to create collaborative relationships, to build strategic partnerships. And I'll even work with people I don't know. And I give everybody a blank slate. And so you may be able to pull a fast one on me, you may be able to get some fraud on me, but you'll do it once and then that'll be it. And I think that to me is one of the big blind spots for folks is they get this bunker mentality and they don't realize how restrictive they're being in some of their thinking and the way that they're looking at things, how they're looking for strategic partnership. Are they even looking for strategic partnerships? I think that's one of the big things that can be a challenge.
In your experience, does strategic thinking come naturally to leaders, or must it be trained?
Almost always. I never say always, but almost always it has to be trained. Most people do not think strategically. They don't look at at the bigger picture. If you look at the adult stages of development, we talked about this in one of the other podcasts, most folks, especially really good ones, are stuck in the expert stage of adult development. And that means that they're really good at what they do, but they don't necessarily have a good grasp of all the other components or elements that you need in a business in order to scale, to make it bigger. And so those are the kind of things that I try and help my clients with, is to look at problems strategically. And having taught strategic thinking for the federal government for over a decade and a half, I take some of those training lessons and provide that back to my clients in order for them to look at things. And some of that does come with trust. And that's one of my other goals, is to build the trust with the clients so that they understand that I do have their best interests in mind of the companies. And as I mentioned before, I always try and create win-win-win environments for the clients that I'm bringing together, and obviously for myself, so that we all walk away with something better than what we had before.
They need to teach a little bit, meaning they got to teach them how to teach. I feel maybe it's the education. It has to be trained, but ultimately to be a strategic thinker, a lot of ways you have to be an educator. You have to understand there's an outcome to each civil thing. And that's where you strategically will come up with a plan. I think that probably if you look at the best war heroes and all of them, they're great teachers. They are great learners, but they have an education side to them. Look at the most intelligent people in the world, Jody. They've either been a professor or have led discussions and understand specifically enough what the goal of speaking to an individual group. But you're right. When you might meet with certain corporate people, hey, they're just used to being a different piece of the pie. Now they have this role, but they don't understand they have much more.
I agree with you. I also would add, you have to be a great learner. A lot of times people get to some of these executive levels and they think they know everything and they're not open to learning new things. And that, right? That if you study business, you look at some of the big companies that have gone under, like a Blockbuster. They knew everything there was about the home entertainment industry until they didn't. And then streaming services came along and they missed the opportunity to buy Netflix. You look at Kodak, they dominated the photography arena, dominated it. They created digital photography and then completely lost control of that technology and missed out on it. We always have to be learning, because as you learn about new things, some things we'll learn about and we'll realize, this isn't what they're saying it's going to be, and we know to steer clear of it. Other things, hey, I see what they're doing with this, and I really could see how this could impact or help my business. And that's one of the things I bring to the table with my strategic advising, is trying to help bring in technologies that can help make your business more effective. The other big thing is, to your point, if you want to become a master of something, if you want to get better at something, teach it. Because if you're teaching it, you're always having to learn more about it, and you're having to study, and you're having to listen to other people in the field and what are their thoughts and opinions. And not that their thoughts and opinions are always right, but it gets your mind thinking and opening up your mind to, okay, Lord, what else do you have for me? What else can you provide? And then just with prayerful consideration, being able to move forward and help to make it better and to teach it to other folks.
What is the difference between authority and influence, especially in high stakes environments?
Yeah, this is a great question. When there's obviously lots and lots of books out there on leadership, there's podcasts and all kinds of things that you can read about that. And different people will bring up different things. I think for me personally, authority typically comes with a rank or a title or a position. Someone is in a position of power, and because of that, they have authority over blank. So over their subordinates, over their program, over their industry, whatever it may be. So that's authority. Influence is much, much more powerful, in my opinion. Influence is the ability for a human being, usually through the power of relationship, to be able to say something or do something and other people see it and they realize, oh, hey, so-and-so's got it right, going down the right path, doing something that we probably all should be doing. That is influence. And that, to me, is where you see transformational leadership really taking hold, is when a leader can step up. If they have the authority, that's even better. But if they don't, at least with the influence, they can step up and they can cast a vision of where we should be and maybe where we are now and how to get from where we are to where we should be peace. And what I'm finding is in high stakes environments, whether it's in the government or in the private sector, there's a lot of folks who are moving into a more risk averse attitude or risk averse mindset because of fear. And fear will always use authority to crush other people, to make them subordinate. Let's say you get dictatorships, that's how bullies come out. But fear has a much, much harder time overtaking influence because people build that relationship, that trust in the individual who's casting the vision. And that's why influence to me is much more powerful.
It sounds like it. And so because authority just is a figurehead, influence means you're really influencing people even before you meet them. And then you're going to get a lot better result as a leader if you have influence with your employees and your whole team versus, oh, I have authority because I've been appointed or it is my position.
Yeah. And understand, influence, as powerful as it is, it can be both a positive and a negative. If there's someone who has put themselves in a position of influence, but they have a negative attitude or a negative spirit about them, that can be very detrimental for an organization. And you need to be able to get that person out of there as quickly as possible because they can be almost like a cancer inside the organization. But on the inverse, there could be people, frontline individuals who have a tremendous influence. You need to find them and you need to get them up in your organization and help bring them into the inner circle and help them to explain to them what the vision is, what we're trying to do, but then also listen to them. Hey, what do you think about blank? Let them know, can we do this? And understanding they're coming from a different perspective. They don't have all the institutional knowledge or things that you would view as common knowledge. That's the other thing I find hilarious is there's a lot of executives who they think things and they just assume everybody else thinks them. And that's not the case. I've seen this both in the government and in the private sector world. I remember we had an assistant director with us at the FBI. We were up teaching at Gettysburg, and she was awesome. She was a great leader and very transparent. And as we were doing the stop on communication there at Gettysburg, she stood up in front of 70 of her employees and said, I'm giving everybody here permission to ask me any questions you have whenever I give you a special tasking, a special investigation, anything like that. Because what I've realized is there's things in my head that I get from different people, different sources that I know, and I just assume, and that you're going to provide me back a work product based off that information. And I'm realizing as I'm getting work products back, that's not what's happening. So I'm telling you, and this is an executive director. So this is a very high level senior executive service member in the government. She said, I'm giving anybody here permission to come ask me anything you need before you go do a tasking that we're putting in front of you. You rarely see leaders like that are giving that kind of transparent leadership to the employees. But it was very impactful and very emotional for those folks to hear her say that.
All right. Where can people connect with you? What's the best place?
On LinkedIn, we're getting the YouTube channel set up. So hopefully they can see some more of the podcasts we're doing and find value in those. But yeah, looking forward to it. And on X as well.
All right. Thanks, Jody. All right. That was a special Trimulcast, the Neil Haley Show, the Storehouse Media Group podcast, and Jesus with Ugly Jody. Guys, take care.